So welcome back to part 2. Today I'm going to introduce you to this side bed, which yesterday I described as my intended explosion of tropical colour, which obviously seems a bit laughable when you look at it now. But if I flash back to some photos when it was at its best in the spring and summer of last year, you will hopefully see that it's not a completely ridiculous way of describing what I'm trying to do in this bed. So you'll see, if we go back to about a year ago, before I started any activities in this garden at all, there was a collection of trees in this corner. I say collection because it looks a bit like there's a tree growing there, but we actually found it was at least 3 trees. So there was the visible woody dead trunk thing which got chopped up and dumped at the back into a dead wood pile to try and generate some wildlife activity, and then all the other trees were actually quite green trunks still, so they all got yanked up as well because they're far too big for that spot. And we replaced it with some cuttings of St John's wort, stolen from my parents' garden once again. So that will hopefully grow into a pretty reasonably sized bush, about as big as the trees were at the time that we removed them. Cover up that outhouse. Now behind that you can see this immense forest of weeds, which I think is possibly sweet violet, but I'm not quite sure what it is. But if we again back to last year, you can see when it flowers it's white flowered. It's a bit aggressive, so I'll probably rip some of that out again. I ripped almost all of it out last year and it's just come back like that straight away. But I don't want to, bust out the pesticides and stuff, because if it wants to grow there, then fair enough really. Also on the wall you can see some of the Kenilworth ivy that I was talking about yesterday on the other wall. And there's also, I'm not sure if you can really pick it out at the moment until it flowers, there's also a lot of Campanula rampunculoides. It's another very common, not technically native, but absolutely ubiquitous weed on walls and railway embankments and stuff in this part of the world. It's got very nice purple flowers and the bees absolutely love it, so I'm encouraging it rather than removing it. The other thing that you can't see in this wall is Mexican fleabane. So when I went to Hestercombe, which is a very famous garden in Somerset, they had so much Mexican fleabane in the walls. It's really nice. There's loads of it around Bristol as well. So I tried to seed some of that last year, but it was kind of June or July I think by the time I got around to it, so it didn't work because you're meant to do it around about now. So I might have another go at that this year, see if I can get some nice pink and white little daisy things in the wall as well. Now down here we've got a lobelia Starship Scarlet, which, as the name suggests, is scarlet red, medium sort of size. The one problem with this is that the stalks for the flowers have this kind of deep burgundy red that you see there, and the snails and slugs just seem to think that stuff is crack. Like, I came out here once at night and there was like 20 snails and slugs just all on that one clump of lobelia, just absolutely stripping it bare. So that's a bit of a shame, but I don't want to become a complete sort of slug poison merchant either. Now down here I put in some Nigella, which I really should have covered in yesterday's video because they're blue, and some of them are in the blue bed as well. Extremely exquisite little flowers that they are, but they're quite fleeting and there's no sign of them now. Down here is a Coreopsis, which is again bright, cheerful yellow, summery colours when it was doing its thing, which it isn't now. Next to it, this thing was a blue daisy kind of flower, which I put in the blue bed, obviously, but it didn't like it there, so I put it there instead, and it doesn't really like it there either. It hardly flowers at all. It was covered in nice little blue flowers when I bought it, and within weeks of planting it, it was not really flowering much at all. So I think it probably just doesn't get enough sun in this garden. But you win some, you lose some. And on the topic of winning some, this guy, what a winner this was. So it's Peruvian lily, even though they don't actually come from Peru. And it's looking a bit raggedy now, but if you flash back to when I got it, it's absolutely superb. The flowers are just unbelievable, intense, sort of tropical colours. Bees absolutely love it. The leaves are almost as wonderfully attractive as the flowers. Really rich, lush colours, and just such good value, because it honestly, I think maybe about a week over Christmas there wasn't really a flower to be seen, but other than that, it's such a mild winter, it's been pretty much non-stop flowering for the last 9 months or however long. 12 quid, takes up a big chunk of the bed. Lovely colours, bees like it, lasts for years, lasts over a British winter. You really can't say much fairer than that, in my opinion. Now coming around next to it, this is all just a bit barren at the moment, nothing much to go on, but hopefully with the aid of some more flashing back I can illustrate. So these guys are dotted loosestrife, and they make a nice big flock of yellow flowers. Not that flowers come in flocks, but you know what I mean. They were another one for my parents, as was the pink phlox, which I find a bit of a colour clash with the yellows and oranges, to be honest, but never mind. Beggars can't be choosers, like I said yesterday. There's also in here some verbena, which look like this, and a crocosmia, which is orange. I got that when it was past its best, to be honest, in the discount section, so hopefully it'll come up nicely this year, but we'll see. At the back here you can see another lobelia. So this one is much taller than the Starship Scarlets on the right. You can actually see how tall it is. All of it was last year's tallness, so it's even taller than the wall. Again, slug magnet, but again very nice, lush, red, burgundy kind of stalks and leaves, for as long as the slugs don't strip it bare. So that's a brief whiz round the side bed for you. In terms of my plans for the future, this is one bed that I kind of deliberately don't really have much of a plan for, because I want there to be at least one place in the garden where if I go shopping and I see something that's just pretty cool, I'm like, yeah, bung that in there, because there's no rules that will stop me, even if they're self-imposed rules. which is honestly the story of how this lily got here. It was just, I went to the garden centre and I was like, yeah, that is sick, I'm having that. So that's the kind of non-structured philosophy I take to this bed. Is it bright and colourful and make me think that's lovely? Then I'll stick it in.